Goodfellas is an American classic, but a classic from a time after the golden age of film, where movies ruled the world and the standards of all moviedom were created. It even comes after the era of the American New Wave or New Hollywood filmmaking that saw the rise of the director as the star of the film as much and most often more than the star actors in them. Though the director of Goodfellas was one of the avant-garde of this auteur period of filmmaking. Further, along with enduring as a classic after 31 years, Goodfellas holds the distinction as being one of maybe not few, but of a lesser array of films that is classic for both having popular admiration of the general movie-going public that's equal to its critical acclaim. And why is this? I would say because Goodfellas is poignant while being down to earth. You're drawn in by the glamour of the elegant outlaw, living life by his own rules, but intrigued by the insight into the lives and psychology of what are normal next door people in most respects. It evokes feelings of both a coming of age story as well as mythical folklore. The lore of the mobster, of the secret society of Los Costa Nostra, that according to mobsters themselves doesn't exist because it's supposed to be a secret, omerta, that lore and ritual around it, the glamour of money and women, along with power derived from violence, we had mostly seen before through the likes of The Godfather. A family story, no doubt, but told through the guise of high society men of elegance, measured and slow in their tones, as well as in the movie's own pacing. Other than that, we saw the mob from the cops' point of view in the likes of Elliot Ness and The Untouchables. With Goodfellas more than ever before, we see the working grunts that power the mob, the guys behind the fancy suits and big cars that are striving for the same, or scarcely holding on to it as they achieve it, and dreaming up any scam to hustle for more. After a non-sequential scene that the movie opens with, which we'll come back to later, the film allows us to get to know an adolescent boy of about age 12 in a predominantly Italian 1950s Brooklyn neighborhood. We identified some of the draws that lure you into Goodfellas. The real hook that pulls you in and holds you once you're there is the story and the intricacies of that storytelling. Akin to that is the movie craft, as I call it, or arts craft. That's the craftsmanship in how one goes about making film. Martin Scorsese, the director and film developer from its inception, takes great craft and care in nearly every decision of the filmmaking process, specifically in Goodfellas, only to be matched by his editors. Let's start with the film's opening and the race car title scene. This opening is of lesser notoriety, yet still an important touch to the film. We see the title Goodfellas swoop in from the side in blood red text emblazoned on a black background, followed by other credits in white text as they move in with car racing sound effects amidst a musical piece. This is one example of the touch added by Scorsese's editors, primarily Thelma Schoonmaker along with James Creed. Now let us move to the very first scene of the movie that we skipped earlier. We open with three men riding in a sedan at night. They hear a bump, then a series of bumps, first surmising it's a flat tire. Their faces then take on a look with a questioning, ominous tone in the driver's voice as he asks, "No." Clearly they know something we don't know. But even knowing that this movie is a gangster film, I don't think anybody expects what comes next. They pull over. The three get out and they pop the trunk. There lies a bloodied man wrapped in sheets. He pleads for his life. No, 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 don't. But to absolutely no avail. One of the three lunges towards the trunk and brutally stabs him multiple times. Another follows with a series of revolver gunshots to his torso. Next, we're immediately hit with the jubilant music of Tony Bennett's Rags to Riches as a third man announces in a narrative voiceover to that scene. As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. The vile acts detract from us immediately realizing that these three villainous characters are our protagonists for the next hour and 45 minutes. But having started with the worst of these men, our anti-heroes, we where we yet find ourselves cheering for them and identifying with them is part of the genius of this film. Scorsese starts with the horror of who they become, then takes us back to who they were by showing Henry Hill coming of age and going into the psychology of why they chose the life they choose and became who they became. Despite the moral objection of the vast majority of viewers to who they are and how they live and what they do, even the very strong objection for many, we push it aside with an understanding that, well, within their world, they have an oath, they have a standard that they live by. And generally, as long as they just brutalize and kill each other, we have a sort of moral suspension of disbelief where we don't justify it as if we think it's okay, but we kind of excuse them for it within this given context. As the next scene takes us through Henry's childhood, we become acquainted with the Brooklyn neighborhood he comes from and sees through his eyes the adolescent idealism of romanticism of the neighborhood gangsters, the fancy cars, the action, their power. And juxtaposition to that is the degradation induced feelings his working father suffers through as a working man. He further compares the money he can make as just a kid running errands and parking cars for these guys, and how he has more cash than the neighborhood working stiff adults. The working man is a sucker, and a gangster is the only thing to be foretold. Morality and humanity are irrelevant to this mind frame, of course. From this series of coming of age scenes surrounding Henry Hill, we learn the two greatest things in life: never rat on your friends, and always keep your mouth shut. Never mind that your friends throw you in a trunk and disembowel you with their mother's kitchen knife. This is their oath, a code between men, the romanticism of being part of something. We strongly identify with believing in being a stand up guy, a good fella. With this, the stage is set with what this movie is all about. These guys ply their trade as street level hustlers while paying tribute up the chain to capos and bosses. They're a brotherhood, impenetrable by any outside force, including the cops, because as Henry later tells us, the organization is its own police force that protects its own. That's what it's all about. That's what the authorities could never understand, so he opines. An impenetrable brotherhood they were, well, until they started killing each other and ratting each other out to those same authorities. We'll take a deeper look into this brotherhood in the second edition of Reviewing Goodfellas: The Lore, the Legacy, the Lives. I'm going to cut it off here because I don't think you want to hear me just talk on forever. And as much as I enjoy my own musings, I don't really want to hear myself for too long either. It's more fun to absorb these things in little bites. So let's talk about what we've gone over so far down in the comments. Then we'll come back in the future and dive deeper into some of the other themes highlighted. We'll look at the individual characters and we'll also go through some of the story arc. Please click the like button if you like this, but then you'll definitely want to subscribe so that the next edition will appear on your home page when it comes up. And on top of that, click on the notification bell and you'll get a ping on your phone and see it in your notifications immediately when the next edition is uploaded. So, we're all checking back in, back and forth, or away from YouTube from time to time, so that will ensure that you can continue to be a part of the conversation. Thanks for watching, and let's have some enjoyable discussion below.